And we are back. Our economy is displaying robust improvement, characterized by a resilient job market and a gradual easing of inflation. Now, increasingly, experts are forecasting a smooth economic transition, a result partially attributed to groundbreaking legislations such as the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act. As we approach the one-year mark since these pivotal laws were enacted, it's crucial to assess their profound influence on small businesses and some similar entities. Here now, sharing more, we've got the Senior Advisor of Small Business for America's Future, Rhett Buttle. And Rhett, glad to have you.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. So when we talk about this here, the Inflation Act, CHIPS and Science Act, a lot of people say this helps small businesses. Give us a direct assessment as to how this actually is taking place.
Yeah, well, look, today we're celebrating the anniversary of the 1 year signing of the Inflation Reduction Act, and just a few weeks ago, the CHIPS and Sciences Act. We also have to remember that not too long ago, we had a bipartisan infrastructure law, right, in the American Rescue Plan. So really, when I think about all of these programs, I like to think about the four of them together. And really, it's a massive investment in the American economy and the American working class families and American small business owners. As you noted at the top, we're starting to see inflation start to ease. Job numbers are up. One of the exciting things that we look at are how many new people are starting small businesses. We've seen over 2 million applications for new small businesses over the last 2 years, the highest level that we've ever seen in a long period. So all of this is good news. And I think those investments are really helping small business and entrepreneurs feel confident about the economy, and they're creating opportunities for them in their communities.
You know, we're hearing a lot about possibly a soft landing when it comes to the economy, but that's a prediction that some people have. But how do these policies actually bolster the economy?
Well, the ways that these policies really help is that they invest in the American worker and American small business owners. And so many everyday Americans, people across New York, but also across the country, are working hard every day, right, to try to get by. And a lot of times what we hear from folks is that they're looking for just a little breathing room or a way to make things a little bit easy. One actual example from the Inflation Reduction Act, right, is that it caps the cost of insulin at $35 for people who are on Medicare. A lot of people are paying much more for their insulin. This is a really great example of how the Inflation Reduction Act is reducing the cost of healthcare for working families and people who own businesses across our country, making it easier for them to use the additional funds that they save from that on other things that they may need to operate in their daily lives or in their businesses.
Now, there are some critics who say, listen, this money, is actually being taken away, some from the IRS, and a lot of people say this is a great thing. But on your side, I understand that you have a different perspective.
Well, look, what the IRA does is it makes an investment in updating the IRS infrastructure. And so, every American business owner, individual has to interact, during tax time with the IRS in some form. And what we want is you want that experience to be seamless. Obviously, we have a lot of technology. Over the last few years, in previous budget battles, the IRS has been starved. And what that has done is it's allowed, not allowed the agency to be as customer-centric as it needs to be, but B, it's allowed a lot of people who are wealthy to avoid paying the taxes that they owe. So these new resources really are aimed at giving the IRS the ability to focus on making sure that the wealthiest among us pay their fair share in taxes, as well as just making sure that the agency is modernized and has the tools and resources to be responsive to businesses and consumers. And so we think that making sure the tax code is more fair and that the agency works well is good for all Americans.
When we look at the Inflation Reduction Act, a lot of people say that where we are today, as we said, predicted with a soft landing for the economy, but still some concern as to what the future actually holds. Through the Inflation Reduction Act, how would you measure its success thus far, though?
Well, I think the Inflation Reduction Act does a few things. So one, we talked about, the important investments it's making in the IRS to make it more customer centric. We've already seen a lot of customer satisfaction come from that. I think healthcare cost is another huge piece of it, and just that ability to be able to bring down the healthcare costs, both in insulin. The act gives some new tools to the government to be able to negotiate with pharmaceuticals to bring down the cost of very high priced pharmaceuticals. So those are all positive steps that put working money in the pockets of families and small businesses. And then one of the most important things as we're thinking about the future is the investment in clean energy, which is really the future. And it creates so many opportunities for business owners who are interested in this economy to take advantage of those opportunities through the money that's flowing down into their local and state governments.
Yeah. Rhett Buttle is joining us now, Senior Advisor, Small Business for America's Future. And as we look to the future, speaking of, legislatively, priorities, what are some of the things that you'd like to see happen, particularly for small business, and the things that we need to be paying attention to?
So the number one thing we hear from business owners is how important stability is. Over the last few years, it's become really hard for the government to do standard things. For example, you may have remembered not just but a few months ago, we were having a conversation about how do we raise our debt limit and how important that was to the economy. And as we're moving towards the soft landing and really making sure that the economy works for working families and small businesses, we want to make sure to provide that. The next big battle is going to be over the budget. And so really encouraging both sides of the aisle legislatively to work together to pass a budget that works for small business, entrepreneurs, working families, and make sure that we don't end up in a place where we don't have the budget, because if we don't, the government will shut down. And we've been through that rodeo before. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for people. And so really just encouraging Congress to come together, get a budget that is responsible, that makes the investments in our country that we need to continue to thrive.
Brett, talk about small business for a minute. The lifeblood of America. Everybody will definitely say it's the lifeblood for which America survives. When we look at where we are today, we know the challenges of the economy. We know the fact that, yes, there is a predicted soft landing for the economy. But from a small business perspective, give us a little bit more of the boots on the ground. How do you assess small business right now in this particular time?
So small businesses are the backbone of our country. They create 2 out of every 3 new jobs. Just under half of all Americans work for a small employer, right? That's how vital they are to the fabric of communities. And, we've come a long way since the pandemic, right? The Paycheck Protection Program played a key role in helping keep a lot of workers on the book. And, what we've also seen is we've seen a transition happen in our economy. And so, I talked about earlier in the program, we've seen more small business applications to start small businesses at more time than any ever over the last 2 years. So that is really exciting. More people are turning to small business and entrepreneurship, and I think that's all good for the economy. Of course, there are things that always continue to sort of make it a challenge to run a business. So one is workforce issues. As more people enter the workforce, that's a good thing, but it makes it harder to recruit quality talent. That's always important for small business owners who are sometimes competing with a larger corporation. But also the number one thing we hear from small business owners is access to capital. You need access to capital. Cash is king when you're running a small business, being able to get loans and financing. We continue to push on policymakers to really make sure that they are providing new and flexible ways and responsible ways of providing financing to small business owners who want to grow. They want to expand their payrolls. They want to make new investments. All that's good for the economy. We need to make sure that the funds are there to support that kind of work.
Yeah, Brett, a lot to look forward to, and certainly some great information here. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Brett Buttle. I should say Rhett Buttle, Senior Advisor, Small Business for America's Future. And Rhett, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All righty, listen, now if you want more information, visit the website, smallbusinessforamericasfuture.org. Then also follow them on Facebook at Small Business for America's Future. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We got more open coming up right after this.